Today, we are focusing on the transformative power of sales strategies, sales leadership, and CRM management.
And I learned early on the process of developing sales and developing or converting demand into opportunities.
How are you currently leading your sales teams? Are there aspects of your leadership approach that you could enhance or adapt to drive better results?
The problem between a manager and a CEO role relies on the implementation and the running of systems, processes.
Assessing your current technology setup and identifying gaps can help ensure you are getting the most out of your investments.
Everyone is just being busy, but they are not heading in any unified direction from that perspective. So really for us, it's about getting clarity and bringing everyone together around a unified direction, a unified goal and objectives, and then working off of that.
Hello and thank you for tuning into the CanadianSME Small Business Podcast. I'm your host SK, ready to dive into another insightful conversation. Our guest for this episode is Steven Wright, the mastermind behind Focus, where innovative sales strategies meet cutting-edge CRM solutions. Steven has dedicated his career to refining the art of sales management, helping businesses achieve remarkable growth by freeing them from the daily grind of sales tasks. Today, we are focusing on the transformative power of sales strategies, sales leadership, and CRM management, key pillars that support the backbone of every successful small business. We will cover the strategies that drive growth and technology that supports effective sales operations. Let's tap into his deep well of knowledge to gain practical advice and strategic insights that could redefine how you manage your sales team. Steven, welcome to the CanadianSME Small Business Podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm well, and you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. It's always a pleasure to sit with entrepreneurs in my studio. Let's start by discussing about your entrepreneurial journey. Can you share with our audience, how you got started and what were the challenges that you have faced?
Yeah, so I'm probably dating myself here, but like many entrepreneurs, it started with schooling, early in my career. My goal was not to be in the sales or the marketing or the growth realm. In fact, I wanted to go into video production, very much similar like this. But that ultimately hit a dead end to a certain degree. And I went to school and got my degree in marketing. And what I learned through my video production years and working on my own projects was the ability to raise money and learn how to work and network and, again, raise money. And when choosing a career or, to a certain degree, choosing education, I thought marketing for me was the realm I wanted to kind of pursue from that perspective there. Completed my degree in marketing at York University. And my first job was actually doing more business development work. And I learned early on the process of developing sales and developing or converting demand into opportunities. But from that perspective, I learned how to develop systems and processes and build metrics and leverage technology to ultimately utilize the sales process from that perspective there. I joined Focus in 2006 when the company was just a 3-year-old company. Early at those days, I worked on business development and became a minority shareholder a couple years later to ultimately buying out the business in 2019 and currently running it today.
Yeah, and how was the journey? Any challenges that you have faced as a business owner that you would like to share with our audience?
Yeah, I think the challenge that I face, like many small business owners, is consistently having something that's predictable. Right. When you're running a business and continuing to operate in the 3 major areas of the business, obviously the growth side, be the sales and marketing, the fulfillment side, fulfilling the services or the products that you're selling, and then obviously the financial side, making sure that you're not only having bankable profit, it's bringing those all together and creating systems, processes, to ultimately have those running on full edge. So naturally, like every other business owner, sometimes one might be working really well and the others might not be working well from that perspective.
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on this one. Moving forward, let's discuss the effective sales leadership. The pivotal role of sales leadership is very, very important in each and every organization. Can you explain how sales leadership directly impacts a company's growth and success?
Yeah, to help you understand that, understanding the phases of any business. And so if you think about many businesses, they start with a sole entrepreneur, a sole proprietor. In those early days, it is one person. And that one person is not only responsible for sales and marketing, they're also responsible for fulfilling
Wearing
the business,
different hats.
Wearing different hats, absolutely. And, they get to a certain point where they now need some help. And so they'll hire some people to fulfill some of those job functions. And they move from a sole proprietor into being much more of a manager from that perspective. But it's important to note that as a manager, the business is still very much them. And that business will now go so far when the business, in order to go to the next level, they need to move away from being a manager and move into a little bit more of playing a CEO role from that perspective. The problem between a manager and a CEO role relies on the implementation and the running of systems, processes. And in other words, the business will operate without the original sole entrepreneur, the founder from that standpoint. And that's where a lot of small to mid-sized businesses start to falter. Because obviously once you remove the founder, the entrepreneur, the business owner out of the equation, the system is floundering. It's not working there. And so what many business owners struggle to do is to actually take what they've been doing and convert that into a scalable, basically what's the word I'm looking for? So a scalable, but a repeatable process from that perspective there. And so what sales leadership does is allows someone to come in either through a fractional or hiring someone full time to kind of come in and actually convert what's been going on into repeatable processes, structures, process, technology, et cetera, et cetera. And that will allow a business to now move to the next level that is not so dependent on the founder, the business owner, but it's actually dependent on the systems and the processes from that perspective. And that's where sales leadership really kind of comes into play within these organizations.
Right. Following on that, Steven, what are the benefits of hiring a fractional sales leader as opposed to a full-time sales executive?
So a fractional sales leader, as the term suggests, it's coming in not only at a fraction of the time, but also a fraction of the cost. So the most obvious is if I can't afford someone full time in the current Greater Toronto area, I forgot what the going rate may be today, but the last couple of years, hiring someone full time, you're bringing someone in total comp probably around 150, 160,000 a year. And so for many small business owners, that's just something they can't afford.
It's a very big. It's a huge amount.
It's a huge amount, absolutely. And so. But they need somebody.
Right.
And so they're kind of in this purgatory period. So definitely one of the benefits is bringing someone in at a fraction of the cost. Now, the other thing is you may be bringing someone in at a fraction of the cost, spending a fraction of the time, but you can still bring someone in that has the knowledge, the history, the experience of what it's like to build these systems, these processes, and support and coach and manage a sales team from that standpoint. So yes, you may not be bringing in someone full-time and may not be at a full-time cost, but you can bring someone in with the level of experience you need, but at a fraction of the time as well as a fraction of the cost there.
Okay. And how your brand focus help small businesses in this area?
Sorry, in terms of
helping them to develop their business
or
sales or something like that. Yeah.
So we work with organizations that we joke. We sometimes will get requests to help organizations where they are pre-revenue. And that's just too soon for us. So we work with organizations that are already generating revenue. Some of these companies could be a couple years old. Some of these companies could be hundreds of years old.
And what's the minimum revenue you work with the company?
It depends. Revenue is a hard number from that perspective. We often say it's 5 to 20 million.
Okay.
But you might be working with some clients that sell $2.5, $3 million products, whereas a client that
depends on their industries and all.
Exactly. But what we look for really is a sales organization where they have a sales team. One salesperson, 2 salespeople, probably no more than 5. We find that if an organization has more than 5 salespeople, naturally they have or they should have a full-time sales manager. So we play that little bottleneck period of 1 to 2 sales reps, no more than 5, where they need that level of sales leadership, but they are too small to need it full-time or can afford it full-time. But where we work with these organizations is we recognize, it's funny, we come to these organizations and as we start to assess and understand how they're currently working, the good news is they're offering value. Right. They've been able to generate revenue. They've been able to provide value to their clients, but ask any member of their team as to how they do it, and they don't know. They come in, they give it 110% and just hope for the best. Right. And so many of these organizations and many of these sales reps are unclear as to what their targets are,
Right.
what their metrics, how they're being measured. What's the strategy? Who should they be calling? Who should they not be calling? They're just being busy and hoping that it all works out. What we ultimately do is we help an organization define that plan, that process. We help an organization then convert that into a repeatable process by actually not only documenting the process, but developing playbooks, developing clear accountability charts, developing clear metrics to be able to kind of monitor. In other words, what we're building, often we say internally, is we're building an engine, a growth engine for a company to not only scale, but to repeat its growth over time from that standpoint.
Yeah, you can say automated engine,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And as much as we'd love to say it's automated,
Right.
the reality is once that engine is built, it needs to be run. And very much like any other engine,
Right.
it needs to be tinkered, tweaked from that standpoint. What we find with most of our clients is, you have an owner of a business that up until now has been responsible for overseeing and supporting the sales team. And either because of capacity, skill, but really most likely because of desire, they no longer want to be responsible for the sales team. And so we come in and we build that engine. And the reality is when you have an engine that now needs to be run, there's no one to run it. And so that's where we come in as a team and we run as a fractional sales leader, as a fractional sales manager to now run that engine, support, manage, coach, and be responsible for the sales team.
And anyone who is interested to learning more about what you're offering, what's the easiest way to get connected with you?
The easiest way is to go to our website, bringonfocus.com. Right from there, you can book a meeting directly with me. And we often say it starts with a chat. It starts with an opportunity not only to understand the current situation, but together, let's brainstorm. Brainstorm some ideas and some thoughts. But yes, the best way is to head to our website, bringonfocus.com.
All right, thank you so much for sharing the details. Let's take a brief pause here. I want to reach out to all of you, our dedicated listeners. Reflect on the insights Steven shared about effective sales leadership. How are you currently leading your sales teams? Are there aspects of your leadership approach that you could enhance or adapt to drive better results? Sometimes, even small tweaks in leadership style can lead to significant improvements in the team performance and morale. Moving on to CRM management, which is very essential for streamlining sales management.
Yeah.
Why is CRM management critical in today's sales operations? And what are the key steps in implementing systems like HubSpot?
It's interesting. I'd love to say a ton of years ago, but really more recently, being successful in sales, being successful in the growth side of our organization really depended on hiring the right people. You may have heard the old saying, hire the born to sales salesperson. And that's, if you were to find that person, your success would be pretty good. But with technology, especially after the boom of 2K, for example, the introduction of CRM technology, the ability to not only manage your accounts and contacts, but to track your pipeline, has allowed organizations to gather data. And that data, if being used correctly, can now help an organization understand how sales are manufactured. So when a lead comes in, what happens to that lead? When that lead turns into an opportunity, what happens to that opportunity? And so there's data gathered that allows all of us to now be able to learn from the data and how to do that. And so what that's allowed us to do is it's allowed us to actually take, our reliance on hiring the right people to be successful, to hiring people that have the right canvas and character. And by inputting them into the right system, a system that's been fine-tuned and tweaked because of the data within a CRM tool, we've been able to turn relatively inexperienced salespeople into great salespeople. And so I bring that back to a CRM. And we find HubSpot is the CRM that we rely heavily on the most today. We find that with a properly utilized CRM, we can not only gather the data, but leverage that data to further optimize the selling process and be able to understand not only where the gaps are, but where the successes are that we can further exploit.
Right. You said you work heavily on the HubSpot, as there are many different CRM softwares. Why do you prefer HubSpot over them?
So it's interesting. At one time, it was all about, do I work with a CRM tool that is on premise? Dealing with servers and all that, or do I deal with the cloud? And I remember this is probably about 10 years ago, there was a very uneasiness about moving into the cloud. We're past that now.
Right.
Everything is pretty much in the cloud. And so from a cloud-based technology, there are a handful of CRMs that we run into: HubSpot, Salesforce, even Microsoft Dynamics and Zoho. Pipedrive is another one there. But of all the CRMs that we worked with, the one that we find twofold. One is that is investing in supporting our ICP, our market out there that we cater to. HubSpot seems to be the one that's best fit for that type of market. Yes, there's a price point as well, but more importantly, again, it's providing the tools that these small to mid-sized business owners can really strive from without having to spend a lot of money, without having to hire a ton of additional resources to not only build, but also run a successful CRM from that perspective.
And following on that, Steven, like how does a well-managed CRM system enhance productivity and also the efficiency for a sales team?
Yeah. So recently, AI.
Yeah.
AI is not a replacement to human capital. There still needs to be a certain tone. There still needs to be a certain relationship between people that is still required to be successful in sales. What AI has allowed us to do is to identify some of those mundane, repeatable tasks that by leveraging technology and leveraging AI, we can now get a head start in terms of doing that. So for example, some of the stuff that we do internally there is, AI and technology in general allows us to constantly be in the know. So for example, if I'm managing a pipeline and let's say I'm managing, maybe a dozen opportunities, for example, there are certain things that we have from a skill set that we make sure at play. But oftentimes, if AI and the data has started to learn certain patterns and certain things, the tool can actually start to provide recommendations. Here's what I'm seeing with this opportunity. Here's what you may want to do. Or here's what we've seen with these 7 other opportunities where we've seen success. Here's what you may want to try to do. So that's where it's been very powerful. I will tell you, we're still dealing with humans using technology. And so what I often say is, if you are someone as a salesperson that is not used to making notes, if you're not used to scheduling your next action, your next task, for example, that's the first thing that needs to be looked at, is how do you change your habits of being a little bit more organized, a little bit more plan your work your plan.
And it's very, very important at this age, right?
Absolutely. Now, the one thing I will say, and I look at my kids are still relatively young, but their adoption to technology is there. And so I see a generation of not only salespeople, but growth-minded people, leveraging technology by default.
Right.
From that perspective.
They're open-minded, like they want to learn and they want to adapt.
Exactly. I still remember a quick story here. We were working with a sales rep and he kept everything in his brown book. And so the good news, he was making notes. Okay.
Even now.
Oh, absolutely. But the question had always been, what happens if you lost that book? Right. And he says, it's never going to happen. Sure enough, within a few weeks of that conversation, he lost his brown book. And so, obviously you can still do the same thing with technology from that perspective, but by not only getting your information digitized, it allows you now to explore other methods of being able to leverage that through AI or through data manipulation, whatever the case might be. By getting your your information digitized, your ability to now take advantage of some of the robust tools out there to help you as a salesperson or help you as a day-to-day doing your work is a lot easier there.
Yeah, sometimes it's very difficult, to change the mind of a salesperson. Like even after using the Pipedrive and even after using the ClickUp, so we use these management. Some of the colleagues they note it down in the diary.
Yes.
Yeah, difficult. So as you rightly said, Steven, a robust CRM system is foundational in achieving operational excellence. I would like to take a moment to connect with everyone tuning in. We just talk about the critical role of CRM systems in streamlining sales operations. Think about the tools and systems you are using in your business. Are they fully optimized to meet your needs, or is there any room for improvement? Assessing your current technology setup and identifying gaps can help ensure you are getting the most out of your investments. Now, moving forward, let's discuss overcoming sales challenges. Like every sales team focuses its own set of challenges. What are some common issues these teams encounter according to your experience, and how can these be effectively addressed?
Yeah, the number one issue that we find consistently is direction. We met with who's a client of ours now, and when I met with them initially, I wanted to do a deeper assessment. And part of that assessment was to actually speak to their sales members and get an understanding from their perspective as to what they were supposed to be doing, and more importantly, how were they measuring their success. And so I would meet with, sales rep number one, and the answer was some version of, I think we did 10 million last year. And so I think if we do better than that, that's the plan. I would meet with a second sales rep, and he would say, I have no idea. And the third sales rep I would speak to was some version of, as long as I'm busy, I think I'm offering value. Ultimately, it all summed up to I hope by the end of this journey, be it a quarter, be it a year, I hope we will get where we wanted to be. And so the first thing that we ultimately work with every organization is helping everyone get clarity on where do we want to be. And that could be, we just want to do better than last year. Well, let's assign a target to that. It could be a little bit more fundamental of we want to be able to grow market share or be able to acquire more customers. Or simply it's, hey, listen, I want to reactivate some inactive accounts and I want to grow our existing accounts.
Specific goals,
Yeah, exactly. That's right. We want to ultimately understand our goals and convert those goals into objectives.
Right.
And then we work backwards.
Right.
And we break that down into, how do we get there? What's the first quarter? What's the first month from that standpoint? And so a lot of the organizations that we work with, to no surprise, is everyone is just being busy, but they are not heading in any unified direction from that perspective. So really for us, it's about getting clarity and bringing everyone together around a unified direction, a unified goal and objectives, and then working off of that.
Right. Steven, how does fractional sales leadership help overcome these common challenges?
Again, bringing it back to what we had mentioned earlier, is a lot of these organizations are starting to recognize that they need that level of leadership. They need someone other than the business owner to support the creation of an engine. And they then need someone to constantly optimize and run that engine, which requires overseeing people, coaching people, managing people, helping them have direction and be motivated. But a business owner, like many business owners, struggle to not only run the business and focus on areas that they are good at, playing a visionary role, et cetera, as well as, getting into the business and running the business. And so fractional sales leadership allows those organizations, those business owners that need it, but can't afford it nor need it full time, have a solution versus just waiting to get to a point of hiring someone full time.
We have covered some fascinating insights into the essential role of sales leadership and CRM management in driving business success. Let's take a short break to reflect on these points. We will be right back after this brief pause.
You dreamt big. You made the leap. You and your "we're not stopping at small" business. Doesn't matter you've never done it before. You unlock those problems. You adapt to change. You learn to evolve. You're pioneers in challenging times, finding your own frontiers. Wherever you e-commerce, UPS is with you. So nothing is going to hold you back.
4 billion people check their email every day. That's 4 billion missed opportunities if your message doesn't make it. To reach your customer's inbox, you need a winning strategy. And Constant Contact delivers. Literally, over 97% deliverability. Elevate your email game with easy-to-use templates, writing assistants powered by AI, and in-depth metrics. Ensuring your email is flawless, delivered, and read. Constant Contact delivers. Give it a try.
At IHG Hotels and Resorts, we're in the business of you.
We're here to help you plug in,
connect and recharge,
make an impression,
and meet with confidence.
With 19 brands built for business,
your business gets even more rewarding.
With an award-winning loyalty program at 6,000 IHG hotels and resorts worldwide.
Welcome back, everyone. Before the break, we covered some key aspects of sales leadership and CRM management. Now, let's dive into the long-term benefits of investing in these areas. Steven, what is your practical advice to any business owner who is facing challenges with their sales?
The first thing is to break it down, is to as I mentioned earlier, is to really set some goals. And I'm not saying set 12 goals. I'm not saying set 50 goals. I'm saying set no more than 3 goals with a defined period of time, and break those into, using the SMART acronym, break those into SMART objectives and break it down into bite-sized pieces. Look at a year and break it down into 4 quarters. Start from there. And again, most business owners might have the ability to do that. They've set goals, they've converted them into objectives, and they've broken down those objectives into 4 quarters. But now it needs to be executed. And that's where many business owners struggle, is turning that plan into something actionable. And so that's, again, where recognizing that it could be capacity, it could be skill, or most likely it could be desire, needing help to come in and convert those objectives into action is where fractional sales leadership, and it's what we do, ultimately helps these business owners do.
Seeking professional help is very, very important, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like, as you rightly said, addressing these challenges head on is a key to fostering a resilient and successful sales force. Moving on, let's discuss about the long-term benefits. Like, looking at the bigger picture in sales leadership and the CRM investment, can you discuss the long-term benefits of investing in expert sales leadership and robust CRM systems?
Yeah, the first thing on the surface is recognizing a business owner that may not ultimately want to separate themselves from the business, but they don't want to be the business. Right. They do not want to be potentially in the business on the day-to-day. And so leveraging sales leadership, be it fractional or full-time, allows them to hand the keys over to somebody else and remove their burden, their responsibility for overseeing and running that engine and those people. And so, to get from that manager level to that CEO level that many business owners want to get to, that's the first step. From there, it's up to them. Maybe they want to move a little higher, move into a little bit more of an investor role and separate themselves from the business. But definitely leveraging sales leadership, be it fractional or full-time, allows a business owner to remove themselves from the business. And let's be honest, if they are no longer the business, the value of that business now goes up, because any investor, if they were wanting to sell, or anybody that wanted to buy the business, is now buying the systems, the processes, and is buying something that is scalable from that perspective there. So that's the first thing. The second thing, again, going back to the CRM piece, the CRM is just a tool. But the backbone of that tool is properly defined and optimized systems, processes, metrics, and KPIs. And so we've worked with many organizations where they already have a CRM, but no one's using it. And they're not using it for a couple of reasons. One is they're not using it because it wasn't set up properly. It wasn't set up to, in essence, support the process, the metrics, the things that want to be measured. But it also wasn't successful because no one is overseeing the user adoption, the training, and the support of it.
I think the training is where the big gap comes in. It's a very big gap.
Absolutely. And training is twofold. One is just, hey, generally, here are the buttons you press, here's what you do, here's how you create a report, and all that type of stuff. But you also got to remember that being successful in CRM, for many salespeople out there, needs to be clarity on why it needs to be used, but more importantly, what's in it for them.
Right.
If I just told you, here's a tool, go use it, most likely you're not going to instantly see value. You're only going to see value until you ultimately see how it can actually make you more productive. And so not only supporting a process that everyone buys into, but leveraging technology that benefits the users is such a critical component to that.
As you rightly said, Steven, you should first understand what benefits the tool is going to provide, then only it's going to benefit the user.
Yeah.
Moving forward, following on that, what business owners, for the business owners who are listening right now and who are struggling with their sales operations, what's the first step they should take now?
It's a loaded question. Yeah. And so I often, if someone came to me and said, here's my situation, really it starts with a discussion. Let's both understand and discuss the current situation, and let's break it down into bite-sized pieces. If someone is not ready to engage a discussion, for example, and if really the topic is around no one's using my CRM as an example, chances are it's not your CRM. Right. Chances are it's the lack of an underlying process that everyone is to follow. There's probably no unifying, as I said, a unifying process that's been deployed there. And so I would probably look at identifying where the bottlenecks are first. If it's CRM, it's not the tool. It's just a tool. It's the process. It's the supporting of the people, et cetera, et cetera. And so I often, say to many business owners out there, obviously it starts with a discussion. But if you're not ready to discuss just yet, ask yourself, what process do you have in place that is repeatable? And what support do you currently have that is allowing people to not only understand where they're at, understand what's working, but more importantly, what's not working? If that doesn't exist today, that's the first thing that needs to be developed and deployed before spending any more money in a CRM, before developing and hiring more salespeople. All of that foundation, that engine is what we called it internally. It needs to be developed. It doesn't need to be perfect, but there needs to be something there that we then hire against, that we bring tools and technology against. It's what we measure against. That's the nucleus that every organization needs to have out of the gate.
Right. As you rightly said, investing wisely in sales leadership and understanding to the core, and also the technology really plays dividends in sustained business growth. Moving forward, let's discuss about the sales tech. As we continue to explore the intersection of technology and sales management, it's very clear that the right tools can make a substantial, difference. Steven, based on your extensive experience in last more than 18 years in this industry, how do you recommend small businesses select and implement sales technologies that truly match their needs?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And there is unfortunately no right answer. And it really depends. And a quick little story. I remember working with a client. Oh, geez, this is probably going on about 10 years ago. Okay. And one of the first things when I went on site and I met with him, I said, how do you currently measure the pipeline? It's something simple. Right. How do we know what is brewing in the proverbial sales pipeline? And they said, well, come with me. I said, okay. So we walked to the other end of the office and they went into a room, probably not much bigger than this room. And there was a dry erase board up there with a bunch of numbers. And they said, that's our pipeline. And I said, so you mean every day the sales team comes into this room, which is a dedicated room just for this whiteboard. And that's how they keep track of the pipeline. Right. And I said, on one level, that's great. At least you're keeping track of it. Right. But the burden of having someone come into this room every single day, erase what was there and update and all that type of stuff was a real pain. But let's also be honest. Nothing is recorded digitally to now understand trends and understand the journey, to record what was there yesterday and what's here today to understand that. And so it really depends on where someone is at in their buyer journey. So for example, if no one has technology today, start simple. Start something that is going to be able to do the basic minimum of managing a sales process. Right. Manage your accounts, your contacts, manage your opportunities or your deals, and capture those activities around those accounts, contacts, and deals. That's it. And HubSpot does an amazing job. But, HubSpot, there's other tools out there, Pipedrive, Salesforce, for example. But we traditionally find from a ability to easily set up and ability to have an organization utilize it with very little cost, HubSpot is the tool that we lean onto. We also work with organizations that have spent a lot of money in their back-end ERP systems. And many of these ERP systems have some basic CRM functionality. In those situations, for those organizations that don't want to have a bunch of tools in silos, oftentimes we'll say, well, let's start with leveraging that. And so that's the first phase. But you will get to a point where what you now want from your tools go beyond the basic out-of-the-box functionality. You might be talking about integration. You might be talking about leveraging third-party tools to support in your growth, some outreach programs or marketing automation. And so that's where leveraging what type of technology is so critical from that standpoint. Back to HubSpot, we traditionally find if an organization not only wants to manage their sales process, but they do have a marketing program or a marketing process, or do want to leverage marketing automation, well, it's a lot easier to leverage a tool like HubSpot that allows you to adapt to those changes without having to change your database, without having to change from one platform to another platform. We prefer to kind of live in one ecosystem and to grow from there.
Right. Can you share with our audience a real life example when the right sales technology made a significant impact on a business operations and its results?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll go back to that example that we just had with that room. Right. I actually think they call that room literally the pipeline room. But there was an example where they were leveraging this room, and yes, they can get a snapshot at a moment in time as to what was in the pipeline. But what we did is we implemented a CRM. We implemented HubSpot. And yes, they got the same snapshot. They saw it in a Kanban view, very similar to what was on the dry erase board, and this showed them what was in there. But now we were able to start answering questions as to what is the average deal size? When we get an opportunity at a certain stage, what's the percentage or what's the conversion rate? It stays alive and moves to another stage. Furthermore, it started to allow us to answer a question is what is the overall average deal size? And so it allowed us to eventually get to a point of asking this question. The question was, in order to hit a goal of X, what does my pipeline need to look like? And so because of data, we now had what the average deal size was. We had the average conversion rates between the stages, and we had the average days in between the stages from that standpoint. So with those three variables, because of technology, in order to hit a target of X within a 12-month period, we could then calculate exactly what your pipeline needed to be consistently from that perspective. So that's where, if you were asking me to, what's an interesting where technology allows us to do that, that's where it took simply a snapshot that gave you a moment in time information. But with leveraging technology, it actually gave us now a formula.
There is a clear visibility, right? Like
correct.
Where you can go and where you are going.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
As you rightly said, choosing the right technology can evidently propel a business forward, making it crucial to get these decisions right. And now, a quick pause to engage with you all on a very pertinent topic: selecting the right sales technologies. As Steven suggested, choosing technologies that scales with your business is very crucial. What technologies are you leveraging in your operations? Are they facilitating growth, or is it just time to consider upgrades or changes? Understanding your needs and the capabilities of available technologies can make a substantial difference in your business growth strategies. Now, Steven, before we wrap up, could you share one piece of advice for our listeners who are looking to refine their sales strategies?
Yeah. I think it's important to note that any business that is operating, be it a year or multiple years, are already doing things, are already offering value out there in the ecosystem. And so the good news is they have something to already work from. But I would encourage them to now better understand what they're doing and start to actually document what that process is. And so start with, where are we generating our leads? Okay. When a lead comes in, how do we know it's a good fit for us? And how do I not know it's a good fit for us? If it is a good fit for us, what do we traditionally do to continue to nurture that lead? What's an opportunity? What do we do when we have an opportunity early? And, when do we quote? And so the good news is a lot of these organizations already are doing this, but they're not paying attention. And so I think the first thing that I would encourage everyone to do is to start to pay attention as to what you're doing. It doesn't mean it's going to be perfect. It doesn't mean it can't get better, but start with understanding what you're currently doing and start documenting and breaking it down. And for those organizations, obviously, where they are struggling to at least have that conversation internally and could use some help, that's where we could help drive not only the understanding of that process, but obviously help document and develop and further fine-tune that process that then can become repeatable.
Steven, thank you so much for sharing your advice and your invaluable insights with our audience. It was a great pleasure hosting you today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you. We have explored the significant impact of effective sales leadership and the sophisticated CRM management, as well as the strategic selection and the use of sales technologies. His expertise has certainly shed light on practical strategies that our listeners can apply to their own business operations. We also would like to extend a heartfelt thank to our exclusive partners, our exclusive banking partner RBC, our exclusive shipping partner UPS, our exclusive email partner Constant Contact, and our exclusive hospitality partner IHG Hotels and Resorts for their invaluable support. Their support is crucial in bringing you the rich content that helps your business thrive. For more expert guidance and to stay updated on the latest business trends, don't forget to subscribe to the Canadian SME Small Business Magazine at CanadianSME.ca. Keep striving for excellence, and we will see you next time on the Canadian SME Small Business Podcast.